So, hello and most welcome to 1818 of the Heidegger series. We will continue where we left off at Warren Goldfarb, Wittgenstein on fixity of meaning. We were not able to find a more calm environment, but we've been very lucky here as getting some nice people studying computer science were willing to change with me. So now we have it until 3 o'clock or 4 even. A very good attitude, so to speak. Last time we went into looking into one of the most difficult things, that is family resemblance. Family resemblance. And what Warren Goldfarb does is to look in to see if there are, first he finds that there is a good reason, or at least there is a perceived good reason to wanting to have generalities, essence, original, universals. And then you look at how would those or that generality work in the language game. And as the concluding remark here, this already suggests that the common property of being a game is not playing the role I described. He's been describing what a generality could do, or the illusion of a generality. Indeed, the content of what can be said generally seems to be entirely parasitic on what we say in particular cases. No content is added at the general level. So there is no gain. You can also see it this way. Nothing is being done. There's no action. As we said before, for a concept to have meaning, it must engage. It must be doing something in the language game. And the generalities do not have a position, so instead they are parasitic, non-acting. You could call them empty concepts as well. And we continue where we left off. It's the third paragraph on page 78. The upshot is that framing matters in terms of common properties simply does not reflect the actual abilities we have in using general terms in new cases, nor the ways in which such use communicates. We cannot say that there is this otherwise ineffable thing that guides us, given the tension between the uniformity of that depiction and what we actually say to justify ourselves in particular cases of ascribing or denying the term. Any appropriate account will have to look different. This then is the second blush point of introducing family resemblance. Everything that could be thought to go on in general with respect to the use of such a general term is parasitic on the highly variegated features of individual cases. The general level adds nothing, and in that sense it is empty. This speaks against the ideas that knowledge of common property or essence or attribute informs ascriptions in new instances. Two, fixity of meaning. However, this still does not go far enough, it seems to me. For one could respond, all that has been shown is that the account of general terms needs to be made more complicated. It may not be a simple property that is at stake in how we make new ascriptions of a general term and in what those new ascriptions communicate. It may be something more complex, grasping such a general term is not a single simple feat, but rather a multitudinous and multi-layered one, involving all sorts of explicit and tacit knowledge. There is nonetheless something to be grasped that underlies our use of the general term. It is a complex thing which comprehends or is a summation of all the particular cases. In this response, family resemblance is a replacement for the common property. It is meant to play the same role. Now a question arises as to what is left of that role. The first blush has impelled us to give up characterizability in simpler terms. The second blush showed that there would be no informative general account of what guides us in ascription, except that which emerges in the particular cases. What is left is that which is implicit in thinking of a level underlying the use of a general term at all. It is the insistence that, whether it come from a common property or family resemblance, there must be a certain fixity, certain kind of fixity. There must be some final arbiter of correctness, something unconditioned with reference to which the correctness or incorrectness of any potential ascription is made out. Only given this fixity could there be a principal ground for distinguishing a revision in our use of game from the discovery of a new game. Only given it could it be definite what we stake ourselves to in making a new ascription or denial. Its fixity provides us with what we are staking ourselves to in making a new ascription or a new denial. The response to the second blush retains the idea that such fixity must be secured. It simply complicates the structure of what secures it. Consequently, I would propose Wittgenstein is concerned to undercut this response. I believe he takes the demand for fixity to embody an incorrect picture of rationality. Moreover, the response also leads naturally to just the sort of analytic projects Wittgenstein is concerned to block, where analysis is conceived as getting at the structure of the underlying level. In particular, it leads to the project of analyzing the understanding of a general term as a complex of explicit and tacit knowledge that covers all the potential particular cases. I read Wittgenstein's concern with this response in his discussion of the lack of sharp boundaries of our concepts, starting at paragraph 68. Again and again, he reminds us that we do ordinarily, in fact, use vague and open-ended terms with no hint that they are substandard or deviant. As these reminders are meant to elicit what? Despite these features of ordinary language, can nonetheless drive us to say with Frege, concepts must have sharp boundaries, or with the early Wittgenstein, it seems clear that what we mean must always be sharp. In paragraph 68, Wittgenstein has his interlocutor respond to, can you give the boundary of the concept game? No. But then the use of the word is unregulated. Shortly afterward, the interlocutor continues. But if the concept game is uncircumscribed like that, you do not really know what you mean by game. The issue is not mere vagueness, but rather regulatedness. The notion that the use of the term must be completely regulated from beforehand is another expression of what I called the demand for fixity. Now, Wittgenstein belittles the notion of complete regulatedness and mocks the call for complete circumscription. He asks, is it senseless to say, stand roughly there? Rejoinders like this are best viewed as meant to get us to make explicit the sources of such a notion of regulatedness. That is, the conception of how language operates and of what must be included in real knowledge of what a term means. That lies in back of the demand for fixity. Thus, there's a third blush. Reading of Wittgenstein's aims in these sections as concerning the notion of the fixity of meaning. This is a more general issue than that of common properties or essences. Correspondingly, family resemblance plays only a supporting part in the considerations. Wittgenstein's tactics are several. There are the continual reminders how we actually operate with language. There is a short discussion of seeing what is common among various items, which aims at showing that this is not a general notion that evidences the fixed level of properties. One important and characteristically Wittgensteinian argument addresses the notion that the underlying level provides in an unconditioned and self-sufficient way the full story about the use of the general term in particular cases. In paragraphs 73 to 74, Wittgenstein discusses samples, for example, a color or a shape. Among the lessons of these sections are that nothing intrinsic about the sample determines that it is a sample of one rather than the other general term. It instantiates. And that is possible to take the item as a sample in many different ways. To understand the item as a sample of a particular concept is a matter of how it is used. It's a question of the role of the item in our practices. This argument should sound familiar. Elsewhere in the investigations, Wittgenstein makes essentially the same point about signposts, mental pictures, and most widely discussed now, rules. The signpost does not determine its application, and the mental picture does not determine its projection onto the world, and the rule does not supply its own interpretation. Application, projection, interpretation are practices. They are not further signposts, additional mental pictures, or rule-like additions to rules. And there we have an excellent stopping point. Will it be level? Rules being the last word at 12:30. Quite some amounts of outtakes here. Page 79. The very last paragraph. And the second last sentence. I believe, and it's a sort of summation, what is the purpose, what is the aim of Wittgenstein here. I believe he takes the demand for fixity to embody an incorrect picture of rationality. Moreover, the response also leads naturally to just the sort of analytic projects Wittgenstein is concerned to block. Where analysis is conceived as getting at the structure of the underlying level. Analysis like chemical analysis. So let me divide this in two, because it's rather dense. Important points made here, and I think they are gold, as his name suggests, Goldfarb. It is about rationality. That's the easy one. our understanding, shared understanding of what rationality is, or rather its role in our doings. Wittgenstein does not see, and this is the second take, analysis to be as getting to the structure of the underlying level. Do note, do not fall into an easy trap here to think that he's also having some problem with the analysis or abstract thinking. That is most definitely not the case. On the contrary. So the next sentence here will explain more. In particular, it leads to the project of analyzing the understanding of a general term as a complex of explicit and tacit knowledge that covers all potential particular cases. Ooh, it's a difficult one. 3 takes here on this. One property of this project could be expressed as wanting to get rid of particular cases and only having general ones. Or the second take, inferring from particular cases general ones. The third take is Wittgenstein wants to show us the way to true analyzing. Those 3. Omne triarium. They are always 3. I'm afraid we have to continue on the same, because it's so interesting. And so we continue. I read Wittgenstein's concern with this response in his discussion of the lack of sharp boundaries. Here we have something we recognize of sharp boundaries of our concepts. Again and again, he reminds us that we do ordinarily, in fact, use vague and open-ended terms with no hint that they are substandard or deviant. These reminders are meant to elicit what? Despite these features of ordinary language, can nonetheless drive us to say with Frege, concepts must have sharp boundaries. Or with the early Wittgenstein. And this is most probably from Tractatus. It seems clear that what we mean must always be sharp. In paragraph 68, Wittgenstein has his interlocutor respond to, can you give the boundary of the concept game? No, but then the use of the word is unregulated. the interlocutor is, I'd say, Frege, who's in the text. So this is the demand for fixity, sharp borders, and we think we wouldn't be rational if we don't do universals from particulars, and then having sharp boundaries between the concepts. So to build a structure, the castle of rationality. Wittgenstein shows this is a house of cards. It doesn't give rationality because our strongest words are very far from strict, regulated. To making them strict would actually rid them of any chance of rationality, intelligence, and sharpness. I go to the last sentence here we read. It's on the page 81. I think we passed where we left off. It's a bit higher up there. Last sentence in the first paragraph: application, projection, interpretations are practices. That's where you have rationality should be put in parentheses. There are no further signposts, no additional mental images, or rule-like additions to rules. That would be like adding another cart to a horse that is already given a cart. There's adding sense to sense and thereby making it nonsense. So our common practice of rationality drives away analysis. And this is easy. This is an easy part. Use that, what we learned before about liminal spaces between the borders, where everything important happens. Remember Terry Marx-Starlow, fractal understanding, where the fuzziness is where all understanding lies, which is a sine qua non for rationality and understanding. And of course, an easy one is Barbara Tversky. If Barbara Tversky, I should need to add George Lakoff and Johnson. Of course, if you use the body, how can it be sharp? The body is in itself not a sharpness. It's not a knife. So the metaphors and intellectuality and abstraction, as Barbara Tversky, George Lakoff, and many others today show, are the basis for rationality, higher thinking, abstraction. Obviously, there are no sharp borders, and obviously, the concepts are fuzzy, unclear from the idea of that there should be another rule, a set of classical laws. As Wittgenstein here calls, there are no further signposts, additional mental images, or rule-like additions to rules. That will actually make them stop work. So let's see here if we can hear Kalle here now. It would be fantastic, this decisive moment.
Yes, indeed. So let me take up the concept of family resemblance in general. And we do have now confirmation from physics that Wittgenstein's idea about family resemblance is essential. Okay, essential is perhaps the wrong word because it makes you think about essentialism. But it's important, it's crucial, is how nature works. Family resemblance. How do we know that? We have Carl Rovelli's relationships. And Rovelli says everything is about relationships. There are no essences, there are no atoms, except in relationships. So this is Wittgenstein and Rovelli go hand in hand, while Wittgenstein uses the word or the concept of gain and family. Rovelli has relationships, and they complement each other. It's basically the same thing, describe the same reality.
Yes, indeed. It's. I think somebody made a comment on the Carlo Rovelli video or presentation and said even essences are relational. And I think that in order to have a rationality, we need to accept its heretical origin or bastard origin as being unclear.
Absolutely, and Frege and these guys here, they want sharpness. Here, they want sharp boundaries. It's completely against, say, De Bono's water logic. Why do you have to have everything? Why does everything have to be sharp? I don't know. It's a modern sickness in the West that you need these sharp things. While in real life, you know that often sharp things destroy things.
Yeah, they make holes in things, and Wittgenstein points there is no analysis, there is no rationality if we overuse fixity or the idea of sharpness. We hurt ourselves, we hurt rationality.
Indeed, this quotation on page 79 is the best of today that you already read, but I repeat it because it's so good. I believe he, Wittgenstein, takes the demand for fixity to embody an incorrect picture of rationality. You could also reread it like stability, and fixity and stability. People want stability, but that is a wrong kind of stability. For instance, when it comes to literary texts like the New Testament, scholars want to show a stability. Say Christians often want to show the text is stable, while the critics say no, the text is not at all stable. Actually, I think the Christians are undermining their own arguments here. What they need, what is truth to nature, is not stability, but fluidity. So the text, to be true, it must show fluidity, actually, and not fixity.
Yeah, most definitely, Kalle here. And I come to thinking, if I may to put in a quote here, is it okay?
Yes, absolutely. Is it from Johnston?
No. It's, I don't know if you can find it on the net. I think you can. But it was an argument between Alvin Plantinga, I think he's called, a philosopher of epistemology, and scientist and philosopher Daniel Dennett. And in the discussion, Dennett said to Plantinga, who he thought he was fussy and unclear, or something of the like. that I would like to go to a doctor that followed your thinking to have my heart operated or something. It was under the belt, but we can actually think of it. Think of a surgeon, a master surgeon, maybe doing heart surgery. There are no there are no fixed rules at all. There is no underlying reality to making heart surgery in the idea of the atoms of a heart, or I don't know what it would be. Studying to be a surgeon, it's massive amounts of different contradictory rules. That is what rationality is. It's fuzzy.
And indeed, it seems that then it doesn't know how a healthy heart works. A healthy heart works that is irregular.
Yes, very good, Kalle. It's unregular. So not even the beat of the heart follows the Fregean idea. And it was so ludicrous because we think that doctors or surgeons, in the case of Daniel Deller, follow these abstract philosophical rules. No, I would say no decent working group does follow any of those rules. Those rules cannot exist. It would be a defunct surgeon. I can imagine that surgeon, he would cut the heart into cubical spaces or something like that and say, after the patient's gone, he would say, the operation was a success, but I'm afraid the patient died. Sorry for the joke, but Wittgenstein is a defender of rationality. What he attacks is more specific. It's a misconception of what rationality should consist of. We do not need to add further signposts.
Well, I propose that we stop there.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad you suggested this B thing, because it was a bit stressing the another one. But now the text, which is awfully dense, is coming out much clearer. Thank you, Kalle.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or evening, or wherever you are. And thank you especially to Warren Goldfarb. Very kind of you.